It's only when we look back on our lives that we come face to face with the power of personal choice. When I was thinking about what to share with you today, I realised that my own life, just like yours, is really an accumulation of all of the choices that I've made. And some of those choices are so ingrained in the way that we think and so subtle that we don't even know that we're making them. And yet, they take us along pathways that we may not have thought were possible to destinations that we may not have aspired to otherwise. In my own case, those pathways brought me to Japan. Japan was part of my life before I could even walk or talk. In a way, it was almost predestined. My father worked for a Japanese company. In Australia for over 40 years. His Japanese colleagues nursed me when I was a baby. They brought me Japanese dolls to play with in kindergarten, and they taught me how to fold origami in primary school. This is our family backyard in Melbourne in the 1960s. There wasn't a lot for the Japanese visitors to do in those days outside of business hours, so they became part of our family instead. And this connection to Japan guided and inspired me in ways that I would never have thought possible at the time. I would never have thought, for example, that I would grow up to be a professional Japanese linguist or that I would marry a Japanese man. It all started here, in this backyard. And yet, apart from my special connection to Japan, I had what I thought to be a pretty normal upbringing in middle-class Australia. I never thought growing up that I wouldn't be able to have it all, or that I wouldn't be able to do something because I was a woman. I never thought that being financially independent and having a career would be instead of getting married and having a family. And yet there are so many Japanese women these days who very sadly feel that they come to a fork in the road where they have to choose one path or the other. I heard a very interesting statistic the other day that 1 in 4 Japanese women between the ages of 34 and 39 are unmarried. And I have to wonder, is this by choice? Or is it because they feel they have no choices? At the heart of all human aspiration is the desire to have life choices. Now, we can't all be rich, beautiful, and famous. Reality will always get in the way. But I wonder how much we really think about the happiness factor as we go about our daily lives and we make all of those small choices that make up our daily routine that can give us just as much fulfillment as the truly life-changing ones. And I believe that giving Japanese women more pathways to personal happiness and fulfillment will do a great deal more to solve the social and economic ills of the nation than simply asking them to have more babies, climb the corporate ladder, or do both, as the case may be. And in Japan, where being part of a group matters above all else, the key to truly realising Prime Minister Abes' vision of a society where all women can shine, and in fact where all people can shine for that matter, is to legitimise the power of personal choice. Now, the government and corporations alike are certainly doing quite a lot to try to reinforce the push to get 30% of women into senior management positions by the year 2030. But change has been slow to come. There are any number of well-known reasons for this. lack of childcare support and facilities, corporate culture, family and marital expectations. But I can't help getting the feeling that many Japanese women are simply afraid of the terrible burden that might possibly await them if they step up to the plate and take on new challenges, and that this is driving them to conclude that their responsibilities effectively negate or outweigh their challenges. And this is no longer the exclusive domain of women alone. Now, with the baby boomer generation getting set to retire, many men are also coming face to face with the dilemma of having to balance their professional responsibilities with the need to take care of ageing parents. And sadly, many of those senior managers too simply turn up to work one day and submit their resignation because they also feel that they have no choice. As we live life in the global fast lane, it's easy to understand how we've all come to feel that our responsibilities are weighing us down like a ton of bricks. And I'm sure you've all had days when you feel like this. So it's time for something new. We all need to truly believe, and indeed come to insist, that it's not a question of responsibility or choice, but responsibility and choice. So I'd like to suggest a little experiment to liberate ourselves. I'm calling it the 30-minute challenge. Now, with the 30-minute challenge, it's probably better to start trying this at home first. And what you do is you take just 30 minutes to step into the shoes of somebody else. Do whatever they're doing at the time, whatever job or task they're doing. Now, this could be your friend, your husband, your partner, your wife, your child. Doesn't really matter who. Now, of course, when anybody who's ever tried this will know that it comes with a whole new set of challenges, even for 30 minutes. My husband's never been particularly big on housework, but one of the things he's always done is water the house plants, until he decided that artificial plants were a much easier way to go. But when we did have real house plants, I never really noticed that they failed to thrive until he wasn't around to give them that extra special care. And there are so many things that we take for granted in our daily life. And the 30-minute challenge is about having conversations about those things, thinking more deeply about those things. So it's not just that wives should do this because it's atarimai, or husbands should do this because it's atarimai. We should be thinking a little bit more about those things that we're taking for granted. Now, with the 30-minute challenge, I'm not proposing that the person whose shoes you've just stepped into should do your job. No, not at all. That person gets to exercise 30 minutes of personal choice without reservation or judgment. So you might find yourself doing the ironing while your wife has decided to either go shopping or catch up on some study, maybe read a book, or even do nothing at all. Whatever happens to be her personal choice at the time. And of course, it's not a one-way street. So we should ensure that this small window of 30 minutes of personal choice gets shared around the whole family so that everybody gets to feel the benefits. And whilst it's not impossible to implement this in the workplace, it certainly does require the buy-in of management. You might find that a boss decides to do the work of their subordinate for just 30 minutes and gains a rare insight in some of the challenges that their team might be facing. Or a senior manager might use the 30-minute challenge to try to get a reluctant worker to step up to the plate and do something a little bit more difficult, if even for 30 minutes. I can certainly tell you that after I lost my personal assistant, I gained a much deeper appreciation for all of the small things and the difficulty of those things that she used to do for me day in, day out, that I used to take for granted and now I have to do for myself. And in the workplace, the person who's received that free 30 minutes might decide to do something that's not part of their everyday job description. So a person in administration could decide to observe a sales call, or a person in sales might decide to observe an in-house lab experiment, for example, and by doing so gain a greater insight into work that other colleagues are doing in other divisions of the company that may not have any day-to-day interaction with. Or they could simply choose to go to the bookshop and browse, because at the end of the day, it is their personal choice. Now, the 30-minute challenge isn't really long enough to cause any problems. But what it is long enough to do is to cause us to pause and reflect on the things that people might be doing for us day in, day out, that we could be taking for granted, and the significance of our own personal choices. And it's amazing what a small but constant and accumulated 30-minute window of personal choice can do to change the way that we think. I look forward to the day when Japanese women will feel free to exercise their personal choice to get help in the home, and not to feel that this somehow makes them into a bad mother. I look forward to the day when other Japanese women, like myself, will feel free to go on the record about their choice not to have children, if that's the case and the right decision for them, without feeling any sort of obligation to the nation or to society at large. I look forward to the day when Japanese women will dare to aspire to more, to step up to the plate and test themselves without fear of failure or causing any undue burden on others. And finally, I look forward to the day when Japanese men will come to see ikumen as the norm and not the exception, and will talk about working fathers as well as working mothers. We don't need to make a big fuss about it. We just need to think a little bit more deeply about all of those subtle choices that we make every day and the unwritten expectations that might be attached to them based on role or gender. Culture is dictated by how we think and feel. At a minimum, we can change our mindset. So take the 30-minute challenge 3 times a week, and you might be surprised how the power of personal choice can change your life. Thank you very much.